You're going to watch it on Facebook, make sure we're broadcasting. Okay.
Well, I looked for Zoom and she says, well, look, we're live.
It'll give me a notification.
Yeah, we're
once you get on
not
there.
going to Zoom.
There you are.
Okay.
there's two.
Hello, everyone. I just need to make sure that we got sound. I heard you. I got it. I promised myself back along some of the other problems we've had that I was going to check it no matter what. I am like President Reagan always said, trust but verify. So I'm trying to verify. So thanks everyone for being here that's with us today. I'm glad you're here. And we would broadcast if you weren't, but it's a whole lot better that you are, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you're here. So any comments about the setup? Thoughts?
You messed it up.
We messed it
We
up.
have to figure out what we're doing now.
Yeah, well, you know.
I'm probably shocked when you haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Is that gonna always be there?
Are
Are we gonna,
always is a long time.
Are we gonna hang it? Are we gonna suspend it maybe, or?
Well, we're not for sure because right now I'm moving it from here to over there every week.
Oh.
Until I get fixed up over there in a permanent and not have to readjust everything over here, then that's where we're at. And to you out in the internet land, thank you for being with us also, whether you're in the lives or in the restreams. And so, I don't know about you guys, but I want to do a breathing exercise. How about that? Because I need it, okay? And is it warm in here or am I just hot?
You just are.
I'm warm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is on 7-1 over there.
That thermostat doesn't work this air conditioner in here.
There's a new thermostat.
Well, that's a new thermostat, but that's we got 2 air conditioners down here now, and that one's not ready to go yet.
So where's the thermostat for the other one?
It's over here on
I
this
put it
wall.
over there on my desk, I'll put it on my table.
Oh, it's on your table?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
What?
it's a portable, it's a portable.
Remote control.
It's on the table, does it give a reading?
It's,
You have to point it right at the eye to adjust it.
Oh dear Lord, okay, never mind.
Just give him the finger.
Well, if you're so inclined, out in internet land, I want to make sure the pictures are right. Yeah, out in internet land and here, if you're interested, just put your hands on your heart and just let's calm down. Let's take a deep breath in through our nose and let's do it twice. Inhale once, inhale twice, and then exhale through your mouth. That feels better already. Inhale once, inhale twice, and exhale through your mouth. Now think of something that went well today, that you did well or happened or you experienced, something that was pleasant. And then inhale once, inhale twice, and exhale. Very good. We're going to be covering step 5. The topic that Tommy selected was escaping self-denial, self-deception, that type is small. And I'm going to have a related subject to that. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach because Zach's going to MC us. Right, Zach?
Yes.
Here's Zach.
All right, well, welcome to Saturday Night Live.
Woo!
Everything is new down here, so we're gonna have to get used to some stuff. But we're glad you're here, and we're gonna get started. So Macy's gonna come read the steps for us, so please welcome Macy.
We admitted that we were, or step one, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step two, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step three, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step four, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step five, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step six, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step seven, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Right. Makes you a hand. All right, if you're out there in internet land, we just invite you to come out and join us live. As good as we are, this is not, sorry. So you miss stuff like that when you're not here. You know, as good as we are on the internet, we're better live. So you got to come out and join us live, and because we'd love to have you. They'll let me in, so we'll take anybody. Right?
Amen.
All right. So without further ado, Tommy's going to come and give the step tonight. So please welcome Tommy.
Hello, everybody. I do want to say this. My condolences to anybody that lost somebody during the tornado. I was thinking about that today. Anyhow, step 5, escaping self-deception. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. We may fool ourselves into believing that we can simply bury our wrongs and go on without ever having to admit them. In time, we all discover that those deeds we thought were buried once and for all were actually seeds. They grow and bear fruit. Eventually we have to deal with a crop of consequences and face the fact that self-deception doesn't work to our advantage. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live on to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. Galatians 6, 7, and 8. If we claim we have no sin, we are only fooling ourselves and not living in the truth. But if we confess our sins to God, He is faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all wickedness. John 1, 8 through 9. Step 5 says goodbye to self-deception and hello to forgiveness and cleansing. We should note that there is cleansing from every wrong, not from wrongdoing, in a general sense. Admitting the exact nature of our wrongs includes giving our account in exact and specific terms. It is only when we get specific that we will no longer be able to fool ourselves about the nature of our wrongs, since we cannot ignore God and get away with it anyway. We might as well come clean and be forgiven.
Yes.
The scripture for this was Galatians 6, 7 to 10 in the New Language or New Living Translation. Do not be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessings if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially those in the family of faith. I do have things I'd like to say about this step, but at the same time, I've learned, this being the first time I've worked my steps in all these years, and that I have to protect my mental health. So I see some self-deception in that, because I used to believe and say, oh, I've been set free from addiction, and found myself at times rolling up all jacked up on something. One thing I can say I've learned about self-deception is recognizing red flags that may trigger me to go off the good path. I've learned tools to protect me in those times, because self-deception has caused me in the past to have a false set of priorities in life, denying the truth of the state of my involvement in my addictions and sinful living. While in active addiction, I would set goals that would never be reached, only lying to myself to continue chasing the bag and deceiving myself to live in a reality that was leading me nowhere. Now in my life, I can value that I have made it somewhere and can resist a lot of self-deceptions that in times past I would drift off into like a daydream until I was so far gone. I'm proud of where I am today in my life. I know I got my hang-ups. I just know that they are not as severe as my life, as they were before, and my life is much clearer. Giving your life to God and accepting His Son Jesus as your Lord and Savior has worked in my life, my mind, and my everything, as it has helped me unscramble all the confusion of my life, live mixed up in my personal self-deception. I have noticed the more I focus on a true reality, the people that God has allowed me to be a part of, they help me grow and see and learn. Thank you. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Tommy. All right, we are going to keep moving. So please welcome John. He's going to do reflection for us tonight.
I find it's a lot easier to deceive myself than it is others, because others can see what you're doing and see what you're doing and not doing right, and you only see it from your area, but they see it from a different area, and it's very, very bad to deceive yourself. But it's best to own up to stuff as it happens, or as somebody tells you that it's happened. It's best to own up to it than trying to deceive yourself or deceive others. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you, John. All right, well, it's time for Doug, so please welcome Doug. All right, here's Doug.
One more time, just because I like it. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, my normal procedure is to ask if anybody has any comments about what was shared there on the reflection or on the step. Any comments from anybody? You shook your head yes, and then you shook your head no, so I'm not sure what that meant. So, well, we're glad that you're here again, and of course out there on YouTube and Facebook. And by the way, I know it's gone a little rough already today, but although we've already said some things that could be helpful, and I just encourage you to hit like or say something. Oftentimes different ones do say something. I haven't been able to get on the Facebook to see if there's been any responses, but anyway. And also, share. If you like it, share it. How about that? Does that sound like a good deal? Sure. I'll accept silence as affirmation, a positive affirmation. Okay. Tommy did really a good job on covering basically all the information that was in the information in the book and in the workbook. And so that was good, Tommy. I appreciate that. One thing that I didn't hear you say that I don't know if I also get information that's related to the Life Recovery Bible and workbook, not the workbook, but just the Bible, in some other related information. And I don't know if this information I'm getting ready to say is out of it or out of the Recovery Bible. And that is step 5 says goodbye to self-deception. And hello, was it in there? And hello to forgiveness and cleansing. I thought that was pretty good.
Kind of like that.
Okay.
The
Well,
last sentence in that was
and so I just thought that was really good. And self-deception is really a very powerful tool that sometimes can be used against us, but even worse, we use against ourselves. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And the biggest problem is we're not even aware that we're doing it a lot of times. And that's why we're talking about it tonight, is to help you to pause and think. You know, if we just ask the question, maybe, well, could it be possible that I'm doing this? Maybe I see something from this perspective, and maybe it's not the healthiest perspective. How about that? Okay. One of the questions that was in our workbook I thought was pretty good, and this was out of question number 3 out of the workbook. It said, ask 3 or 4 trusted friends to write 5 words describing you, your strengths, and 5 words describing your weaknesses.
I didn't like that one.
Me either, Tommy.
Well, half of it was not so bad.
No.
But it does cause you to be vulnerable to even ask people to share 5 words about your positive or your strengths.
Well, Preference helped me with that last night
All right.
because I had read it Monday and I was, never mind, going through something. And when I read it when I was going through that something that was real, I didn't like any of the questions. But when, I went through that something and I talked to Preference about it last night and I was like, I don't like none of the questions in there. I said, hold on. I read them again and I said, you know what? They're just fine. They don't bother me today.
And because sometimes things, tap into us, and and some of the information I'm going to be sharing later, they make reference several different times about being resistant. And I'm sure nobody around here is resistant.
Professionally. Professionally.
Got 100% on that one. And so we will talk more about that here in a moment. But admitting the exact nature of our wrong includes giving an exact. You probably didn't like this one either, Tommy, but because it is a little challenging to us. How about that? I'll use the us word instead of being totally open about me. Okay, and so admitting the exact nature of our wrong includes giving an account of the exact and specific terms. I'll let you breathe on that for a second. What do you think that means?
Being real with how messed up you were
Well,
and realizing it and changing it.
okay, but it says admitting the exact nature of your wrongs, including giving, which we kind of go over that one pretty good. We're not so much there, but it kind of gets a little rougher, I think, in the rest of it. And giving an account in an exact and specific term or terms.
I think this gets harder the more times you've done this. I mean, the first round, it's pretty simple. You you got some stuff that's right there, you can see it, you know what it is, you're like, okay, well, this is the stuff I've been lying to myself about all this time.
There you
But I
go.
think that the further along you are in your recovery, the more times that you've done it, around, I won't date myself, but, up there in the double digits, but, I think it gets harder to see the things that you are maybe, deceiving yourself about. You think, well, I'm past this, or I've dealt with this, and you don't really acknowledge that, I've got the skills, I know the tools, I know the lingo, I know how to work it, and so you think that you got it, until one day you realize you don't.
And that's the absolute truth right there, because it's in that area that we're not even aware. And one of the reasons why I think that we're not even aware is because, hey, we've lived with it for so long. And because it's always been, pretty much, right? And so until we come to some of these crossroads and we work these steps, or we're in a conversation, or we hear something and it triggers some of these thoughts, then we go to looking at it. And the reason why, I'm just going to go ahead and say this, the reason why I believe they want us to give a full and complete accounting is so that we know. Because you can't deal with something that you're not aware of. Now, it's not fun, it's challenging, and I was going to try to lighten it up, but the reality is, every time that happens, you're overwhelmed. Because now you realize, I've been doing this all along. I thought I had it all together, and everybody else has been seeing it. Now I'm the last one to come to the awakening. At least that's my interpretation of my process. What do you think? Yes? Yes. And the question is it in our best interest to wake up and see our stuff? We're going to go with some of the information that Tommy talked about. I haven't got to the other stuff yet, but we're just still in the step study. And he's talked about that our deeds that we've done in our life, they are forgiven. Yes, they can be forgiven, they are forgiven, but there are consequences for those things, because those deeds are like seeds that's been planted, and things grow. And so, tying that statement in with what I just said, coming to the awareness that we got stuff out there growing, and maybe we can eliminate some of those consequences by dealing with it early instead of late. Or until it comes up and bites us somewhere. Right? Okay. So what do you think about that? Any comments from anybody?
Oh no, with me it's easier to pick out the wrongs. I can give you list upon list of wrongs I do. But now I have to ask somebody else about I might be able to get one positive, but I have to start asking after that first positive.
And that's what this question number 3 is about, is 5 words that are about my strength and 5 about my weaknesses, and then you process them. But the rest of the story here is we oftentimes, it's easier to see our flaws, but this is going a little deeper than just seeing our flaws. Okay? It's accounting. In other words, what was it that was driving me to behave this way? Okay? Because see, reality is, everything that we've done in a search to fulfill some sort of need that we have or we think we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you understand what I said?
Yeah.
Okay. So our survival mechanism is to avoid pain and seek pleasure, and so everything that we've done, we thought it was either avoiding pain or seeking pleasure, and which helps us to survive, which is a good thing. But the trouble is, sometimes our survival mechanisms, maybe it did help us to survive, so I'm thankful for that, right? You survived. But the rest of the story is we keep using that same tool over and over when we really need to come online with some new and healthier tools. That's the reason why we're doing steps and talking about it and letting people reflect and things like that.
In other words, if you own tools, the hammer every problem today.
That's what Abraham Maslow has to say about it. Yeah. And so, any other comments before I go on?
I was thinking about when you, like, okay, you stop doing those things and planting those kind of seeds and doing things, differently, but are somehow not doing the same thing, doing stuff the same way you were when you was planting bad seeds. Does that make sense?
Say it again.
Like, you're not out planting the bad seeds
Right,
as
got that part.
much as you were, right?
Yes, as much as you were. Got it,
And now
good.
you're planting more good seeds,
Yes.
but you're doing it with the same approach as when you were planting the bad seeds. Is that too much for you?
Okay, yeah, and you want to define what you mean by approach?
Yeah, just the way you go about doing it.
In other words, using force to get your way, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, you're heading in the right direction, right? You're not, but you're at least heading in the right direction.
Right.
And so we have to learn how to develop it. And see, and that goes right to what I said here out of this question here about that accounting.
Yeah.
I am, because we hear it all the time. Well, I've done everything right. How come this happened, that happened, this blew up, that blew up, right? And this is complex, right? Complex means there's layers upon layers upon layers. So I'm going to try to make it simple and then go on, okay? And that is that we're in this, it's a process. Recovery is a process. Life is a process. And we can only deal with what we are able to see at the moment. Well, we're not really able to deal with it when we see it, but at least now we're positioned to where we're able to start to deal with it. Does that make sense? You're able to grow. If you don't withdraw, hide out, numb out, sabotage yourself, right? Yeah.
I was just gonna add that the same approach doesn't work.
No.
So you really can't, not to disagree with you, Tommy, but you really can't use the same approach to do the positive as you did the negative, because you won't get the result.
Makes sense.
So if you can't use force, manipulation, and all those things that we did doing the negative stuff, because you won't get any positive outcome.
True.
It doesn't work that way.
It was a thought.
And that's a good thought.
Yeah.
And actually, I think Zach said it a little more clearly than I did. The rest of the story is, it's a growing process. And we have to grow in that. So making those changes, even though you're using the same tool, okay, you're wanting to have different results. You've got a different goal in mind, but you're still forcing or beating or threatening or trying to use your words, using your old tools to get good results. And this is going to sound a little bad, but there's a lot of people that use manipulation with the intent of producing good results. Okay, but manipulation, it does work to a certain degree for a little while. Okay, but the fact of it is, it's destructive on you and the person or persons you're doing it with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so, but we are not even aware all the different areas that we manipulate people, because we've had it so long. It's been in us. It's lived in us. It's been our tool of performance.
Yeah.
Right?
you're talking about the exact, accounting.
Mhm.
I guess one of the things that I struggle with is, there's things that pop up in my life over and over and over again. If you think, and it's kind of, you talk about going around the layers of the onion, and you're back at it again. And you look at it a different angle, you tackled it from 400 or 500 different ways, you just can't figure it out. And for me, the struggle is kind of trying to understand what is the exact, what is that thing? I mean, I've been beaten, beaten the carcass, so to speak, and it still rears its head.
Mhm.
And so truly understanding, I mean, I like to think I'm not deceiving myself and I'm aware that these things happen, but I'm struggling with figuring out how to overcome them and what it
Okay.
is and why it's there.
And that's great. But I'm going to tell you a little something that may help you to be able to come to that place of more clarity. And that is the thought that I'm not doing this is troublesome for us because the fact of it is 95% of our choices come out of our unconsciousness, and it's running on autopilot, automatic, and it's going to make these decisions, and it's looking for connections to get what it's used to, and it's all unconscious, and so as long as we, this might be a little tough.
Yay.
But this goes to all of us. As long as we advocate our personal responsibility, then and continue to play the role of the victim, then we are minimizing our own personal power to come to those places of being able to have freedom and peace and joy and being set free, and those are powerful breakthroughs that have held us, and sometimes they have a lot of internal body energy pent up inside of us that pushes us around. We're not even aware of it. You may or may not understand what that means, and that's fine. But as we continue to pursue, as you've heard me say over and over for years, some of you have, as long as you don't give up, as long as you don't intentionally sabotage yourself. And what an intentional sabotage is: I give up, I quit, I'm just going to do that I want to do and get it over with, and it probably won't make any difference this time because I've done it a lot, so it'll be all right. And some people live through that, and some people don't, to put it bluntly. Does that make sense? But there's a lot of degrees in that. I know that's kind of abstract, but I think all of you know what I'm talking about. Hello?
You're not getting to what you want to get to tonight. I'm not helping you. I had a thought, and this is just about me. It's not about anybody in there. And
We knew that already.
huh?
We knew that already.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad you're here, Zach.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. Had graduation stuff.
Yeah, a double.
Mhm. I remember I went to Bible college for a year and couldn't make it. I don't even know if I didn't finish the year, but it wasn't working out for me very well. And I was cutting class. I was actually cutting New Testament. I was cutting New Testament class, and I was downstairs playing basketball, and they were actually having class upstairs and could hear me, and I didn't care. And that was a big sin, you know. And I was really frustrated because I wasn't accepting myself. This kind of came to mind when we were talking. And I was trying to be something that I wasn't because I didn't like myself. And I wasn't accepting of myself. And because anything negative that God tried to show me or that came up, I took very personal, I took very negative, and it was really, really bad, but that's not why they were coming up, it wasn't to come up to show, God wasn't showing me these things in my life because he was trying to say that I was rotten or that I was a really bad person or anything. He was saying, hey, you're asking for my help with these things.
Yes.
If we work here, you might get some of these things took care of.
Yes.
And so, I'm getting what I'm asking for, but I'm not liking the message.
Right.
Because I took it wrong.
Right.
And I remember being down there and I felt like, I was looking at the basketball, I was shooting hoops, I was looking at the basketball, and this basketball can't be anything than what it is. It's basketball, it can't be anything than what it is. It may sound dumb, but it can try all it wants to be anything else, but it's not. It is what it is, And I decided to dare to take these things that were coming up in my life and not look at them like they meant very bad negative things about me, but they were just, hey, let's work on this, not take them personal, and I started kind of getting over into some radical acceptance, learning about that, and so I just kind of got crazy with it, and I just radically accepted it. Not that I'm there yet, because I'm not, but I mean, there's things I'm still working on, and I will be till the day I die, but I just started trying to accept the things that would show up and not decide that they meant bad things about me.
Good. Excellent.
And
That's a challenging corner to take right there.
But it was way better than the alternative, because the
Oh, yes.
alternative was hell.
Right.
And so I decided just to take the message and not decide what the message meant, and not add, because I was adding all kinds of stuff to it, and all it was just shining a light on it. Hey, because it was there whether I wanted to notice it or not. It was there. It existed. So hello, and then just try to make it better, and that was pretty life changing, and so. I just kind of feel like that fits what we're talking about. I think sometimes I guess here's my point. I think sometimes, I know in me, I got stuck on things because I decided they meant something bad about me, and I couldn't accept them. Because I decided they meant, I got the message wrong. I decided they meant horrible things about me.
You took the message and you applied it to your being instead of your doings.
I decided that, it was a sum of who I was, and not, hey, I might need to work on this a little bit. Because the reality of it is, it's not who I wanted to be. And so I think a lot of times we sabotage ourselves by, we ask for help, God shows us something, for whatever means, and then that's scary because we decide it means that we're terrible, and then we can't accept it because of the label we put on it and how we feel about it, instead of just asking God for help with it. And then
we start acting like God or God's helper to
And
punish
then-
ourselves.
and
How'd that work out
get-
for you?
Huh?
How did that work out for you?
It was not good at all, and it was funny because that was the most profound thing that ever happened to me in the whole year of Bible college, was standing there playing basketball, was that message. And so I quit trying to decide what those things meant, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I had to work at it, but I just tried to decide that it didn't mean that I was bad or terrible. It was just something I needed to try to address.
That's great. We need to we need to have you when you talk, and anybody maybe what do you think about this? Because I'm sitting here listening to you, I wish that you were in the camera, what I'm trying to say. And so, you know, we'll talk more about that later, okay? Since we can't ignore God, this is one of those other statements that may or may have not been in that information that you read there, Tommy. Since we can't, and I think it was in there, since we can't ignore God and get away with it anyway, we can't ignore God and get away with it anyway, we might as well as come clean and be forgiven. And that kind of ties in with, I thought of that when you were talking about that. And I was talking to a fella this week, and I made this note. This is my last note that we're going to talk about the step study. I was thinking I was going to read it again, but I think we'll end there. But anyway, I was talking to this fella this week, and he was talking about how he made big changes in his life. And he talked along some of the same things that you just said, Tommy, that for a long time he tried to make a shift. And he wanted to do things right, but there was all these kind of pulls to try to get him to do the stuff that he's always done. And he made this statement. I want to change it a little bit to protect myself. How about that? And the innocent, right?
From Linda. From Linda.
Not about Linda. It's not about Linda. But he said that. He said, I finally realized that I was stealing stuff to get me what I wanted. And I realized every time I did that, and he indicated he did it a lot, it always ended up costing him more money in the long run. And it took him a while to figure that out. And he was talking to me about this guy can do this, and they said they would do it for him, and they won't get in trouble with it because of their connections, and so they won't know if he does it for me. But I said no, I just don't think that would work out very well. And he was talking to me, and I said, I think that was a good decision. Because you just don't know what's out there. You don't know what's going to happen. Besides that, you know that it doesn't work out well for you to do those things.
Maybe it'll work if I just do it one more time.
Just this time will be all right. And those are very difficult issues that we have to come to, and that's where we have to come to the places. What's really, 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 really in our best interest? And that's what step 5 here is all about, admitting to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs to help us to go through that. And it's a very powerful step. So, any other comments? If you have a comment, come on up here and give it. Now we don't have any comments. Boy, that's not going to work out very well either. Okay, we're moving right along. Are you bored yet? Okay. Mm-hmm. Zach shook his head yes. So.
I said no.
Oh, maybe he was looking at your phone or something. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's that phone thing.
Yeah. The topic that I'm going to be addressing is overcoming self-deception and living an authentic life. And this is from off the internet. It's from Beacon Health Options, and I thought it was pretty good. I'm going to go through it rather quickly. If you do have a question or a comment, flag me down. Come on up here and ask it, or just ask it. And so, I'm going to give you a little summary, kind of some of the big things that we're going to be covering, and there's 3 of them that this information hits, and it's becoming a self-deception detective. And that's kind of what we've been talking about, looking at ourselves, right?
Self-deception detective.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Now, not for others, but for yourself, of
Oh, I
course.
know.
Okay. And so, of course, the scripture says, seek and you'll find, right? Right. And if you don't look, it's probably going to show up anyway. But if you look, at least you're leaning into it, and you're a little more willing to see it, right? Okay. Number 2 is,
Forgot what it was like to be live in this room.
identify your life's purpose, values, or goals. And we talk about that from time to time, and that's so important, because to be congruent in our life, to know our what we believe our purpose is, to know our value, what our values are, and to have goals that line up, and we have them all lined up, and it's and our mental and emotional, our spirit, they're all hopefully more aligned than in disalignment. Does that make sense? Because when we're not, then basically you are defeating yourself. Okay, because you're doing like that fellow talked about. I was stealing stuff, but it cost me multiple times more than what I stole, because it caused other stuff to go bad that wasn't bad, and it was just negative ripple effect. So I thought it was an interesting point, and I thought I'd.
It's called jail.
But jail, it would,
Fines.
yeah, yes, all that plus, and even if you don't get that far, it's still up, as far as other costs, okay? So, let's go forward. Have you ever ignored the truth or reality about yourself?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Shall we take a vote? And so, yes, well, and
Some of it.
we're talking about self-deception tonight, and you may be a good candidate.
Why were you looking at me?
I was looking at Zach.
You were looking at me. Nice try.
Well, and so, but since that's what you think, it may be so. So most people deny or rationalize their flaws and weaknesses, right?
Easy.
Okay? That's, again, not taking that responsibility we were talking about. They fool themselves, at least some of the time, right? At least some of the time.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. And it just kind of depends on where you're at on the continuum, okay? Engaging in a form of self-deception, according to psychology, is a normal human tendency. I thought I ought to make sure that I hit that out. I circled it several times to make sure I communicate. It's a normal human tendency. We have a human bias to lean that way. That doesn't mean that's not to justify us doing that, but that means we recognize that if we're not careful and we don't purposely choose where we want to go, you'll end up being pushed along with those biases that we were talking about earlier, okay, unconscious direction. That may result in consequences that run the gamut from helpful and unhelpful. yes, even self-deception can, to a degree, small degree, it says in the information, it can be helpful. Where you, speak positive to yourself and encourage yourself to where you're able to go ahead and move forward and have a little more confidence. But at the same time, if you go into grandiose thinking, my term, not theirs, then that causes you to go into a place that it can be very destructive, right? Okay. Self-deception helps a person cover up short-term, I'm having a problem here. Self-deception helps a person cover up shortcomings, that's it, shortcomings, and is a coping strategy for negative, uncomfortable emotions. It is a way of thinking that allows a person to justify false beliefs about himself or herself or others. Okay? Did I mess that up enough where it clouded it? No one is immune to self-deception. And most of the time, we are unaware. Okay? And that is, what I'm talking about here is what is self-deception. I forgot to give you the title. I'm going to jump to the next title, and that is recognizing self-deception. Okay? And I have 4 areas here that they've given that were identified to help us to recognize places that we deceive ourselves. They include money, relationships. I looked at everybody. Work, and body image. I need to look at everybody. And so, money, oftentimes we measure our success and our worth by material goods, and if we continue to have that mindset, what oftentimes will happen is that we start getting things on credit and we end up in a mess, right? Because we feel a need to, we think that the material goods or material substances, we think that that's what gives us happiness, and it basically ends up robbing from us. We rack up debt. Relationships, if you're looking for someone to bring happiness to you, okay, you're looking for your happiness on the outside, externally, okay? Your happiness is not on the outside. I know we've all heard that over and over and over and over, right? But, as the old country western song says, you're nobody until somebody loves you, right? That's what it says. But the problem is, you are you, and that you need to recognize that you're not going to find happiness just because you have a relationship. In fact, sometimes I think I'm going to stop right there. And so, yeah, well, the other stuff I said was risky, but that, working, while work can be a great source, and these other things can be a great source, money, relationship, and work, can be a great source for satisfaction, but identifying that you're only as valuable as what you do in the work arena shortchanges you. It's a dangerous thing to do. And it's really easy to slip into. But when we fall into it, then we lose the aspect and the values of the things that are in our life, the relationships, the community involvement, the self-care, and how many times have we heard people say, well, I don't have time to do self-care because I'm working all the time, right?
How do you get ready for work then?
Yeah. And so we need to we need to recognize that work is good. And so we need to do self-care and many other things to help ourselves. The fourth one is the body image, believing that we're only acceptable and or happy if we are a particular way, and so then we're continually punishing or shaming ourselves, very similar to what you had said a while ago, Zach, about this statement, and then you were you actually were dumping even more shame on you, and oftentimes we shame ourselves with the idea, which is a good intention because you want to get better, but the fact of it is you're using destructive tools to try to do that. Any questions? Okay. Positives from self-deception. I think I already touched on that, and harmful effects of deceiving yourself. However, self-deception can also be a breeding ground for failure, missed opportunities, unhappiness, loneliness, depression. Okay? Self-deception. Just kind of help us understand a little bit more about it. Real living, true desires, and genuine communication are masked because of deception. I'm going to say this, that when
Say that again.
yeah, real living, comma, true desires and genuine communication are masked behind deception.
One more time.
I think a hole on that I'm going to talk about for a second, and that is that the picture that I have in my mind is when we're playing the role of being of deceiving something, or not pretending to be something that we're not, with good intention. Again, remember we talked about good intention a while ago. Then we're actually masking or covering up our genuine genius, our communication, our desires. We're hiding. We're putting a wall between us and everything else. And the reason why we're putting a wall between us is because we're trying to protect ourselves, right? Okay, and that was a coping mechanism that you learned. But the fact of it is, if we continue to go down that path, I just had this lady pop in my mind, and this has been 25, 30 years ago. She'd been married over 25 years, had 3 kids, and she said, you know, I've never really had a relationship with my kids or with my husband. And she said, in fact, I don't think anybody. Now, we're together, we do stuff, but what she was talking about, having real emotional connection. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, then you might ought to check up. Okay? And so, because she guarded herself from everybody and everything to protect herself because of her past traumas that she had, which we understand. But the fact of it is, her perceived safety was actually sacrificing her connections with everybody. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's scary. But you know what? She couldn't change that until she was aware of it. Now, I didn't tell her that. She's the one that said that. Okay? And so, and she was hopeful because she still had the last one at home. And she was hopeful that maybe she could make some improvement. And I think she did. Now, the reverse of that is to go ahead back into self-deception and then beat herself up and shame herself and sabotage the rest of her life. Right? We can't do anything about what we did in the past. We were trying to survive, we made those choices with, in most cases, with the best intentions that we could, okay? Even if they were, like, kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, Tommy, even though we were trying to do things differently, but we were doing it in the same way, and that's a good intention. It's just, it's not, we have to learn to make those adjustments, and we don't know that until we know it. Does that make sense? And when we know it, don't then interpret it as meaning, well, I'm all bad, I'm terrible, there's something wrong with me. Because I remember my vision of myself as being my big old hole in the middle of my chest, that it was just a sucking hole, big old hole that sucked everything, and everything that went in there just never filled it, but it was an overwhelming negative feeling. Does that make sense? Any kind of sense? But that was, and I lived with that most of my life until I realized, what if that's just my perception that there's a hole there? And I'm just living it out. Kind of like what you said.
That's really powerful. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, it's possible, right? It's got to be possible first before you can make the change. And then I investigated it and decided to make some changes in that. And eventually that whole stuff, best way I can describe it, it started closing up. And I started healing. And I don't know if I've ever told that story before, but anyway, that's some of my story. So, and see, when you change your story, I mean, and you really change it, and you really make the change, and you believe now the new story more than the old story, then you function, you live, you act, you feel differently. Right? Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Raymond.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hi. How are you?
We're doing good. We're glad you're here.
Thank God. I'm glad you're here too.
All right.
I hope we graduate.
Let's see, where am I at? Oh, there we are, yes. We're on number 3 here, and I put a red mark beside it, means I really thought it's good. And that is, be aware of your self-talk. Yes, be aware of our self-talk. See, we should be our best friend instead of our worst critic. Yes, I'll say that again. We should be our best friend and not our worst critic.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's true.
We should talk to ourselves as somebody that's important and valuable, because you are, and you need to treat yourself that way. But as long as you see yourself in a similar fashion, like I was describing a while ago, you see that, so you're just going to treat yourself. You don't really have the capacity to treat yourself properly until you begin to look at your self-talk, see what you're saying, because see what you're saying, whether it's the first thing when you wake up in the morning, how this chatter that starts going on in your head about you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? You do know what I'm talking about. And so you look at what's that chatter in your head saying? Is it encouraging you? Is it speaking positive, loving, affirming you? Or are you beating yourself up? So we need to check our self-talk. We need to be our best coach. We need to support ourselves and get support. We need to encourage ourselves, and we need to be connected with people that will support us and be positive. Yes, Zach, you want to come up here?
You live out of your perception of yourself
Right,
every day,
every day.
and whether you want to believe it or not, the self-perception, you judge every interaction through that filter,
That's correct.
and you know, it's, you know, you may have a negative interaction with somebody and you may perceive it that way, and it may not have anything to do with you, you know, but when you feel that way about you.
We don't want to miss that point. You said may, I'm going to say probably doesn't have anything to do with you.
And I used to have this sign in my office at work when I had an office, and it said, it used to make people mad, because it said, it's probably not about you, you know, that's basically what it said, and people used to get mad about that sign, and it brought up conversation, because it used to make people mad, you know, well, that's rude, you know, I'm like, well, it's about thinking, you know, other people's thinking, because, you know, just because you have a bad interaction with somebody doesn't mean that it's about you, but that's how we always perceive it.
Right.
And whenever, I remember that before I had worked on my stuff, and not that I'm done, but I used to view myself as, you know, dirty and damaged because of all the abuse and the mental, physical, sexual abuse and everything. And so that's what I thought about when I went to bed, because you keep yourself busy and keep your mind on other things, but then when you're going to bed, you're not busy. So it kind of comes in. And when you wake up, you think about what you were thinking about when you went to bed. So it's when you go to sleep, that's what you're thinking about. It's when you wake up, that's what you're thinking about. And, or at least for me.
Yes.
And then, you know, that's how you're starting your day. And that's what I've talked about in my story before, and it's kind of like, you know, I got out of bed and I would reach over and grab this, you know, this imaginary coat of shame, you know, and I'm putting it on, because I'm going out in the world with that self-perception. So I'm not going after things, you know, because a dirty, damaged person doesn't deserve those things, you know, doesn't go after those things. You know, we don't realize how much of that, you know, takes away from us. You know, because we don't think people can see it or anything else, but it robs us of a lot of stuff that we don't even think that it, you know, we hold back. We don't, you know, we're not outgoing, we don't talk to people, we don't, you know, it robs us of all kinds of things. It robs us of, you know, jobs or friendships or just.
That's that mask that they were talking about.
I mean, it's if you dare let yourself think about it, it's pretty crazy what that does, you know. And you know, when I was laughing at your when you said self-deception detectors, I wasn't laughing at your statement. I was just, because it's like a hammer, you know. It's extremely healthy if we would be willing to do it.
Yes.
You know, and you know, but it's scary, you know. And I work with people, and I'm not saying that I don't have any self-deception, because I know that I do. Okay, I know that everybody does in some form or fashion, but I deal with it every day, you know. And this can go as far as to it can kill you. You know, like if you go to the extreme level of, like, whether you're in a relationship and the person saying, you know, oh well, you know, he'll change, or, you know, that self-deception, or, well, I don't deserve anything better. You know, those types of things. Or if you're sick and you won't, you know, well, I don't deserve to get treatment and get better. You know, I mean, it's really crazy if you think about it, what you can do to yourself if you don't check this.
And that's absolutely right. You remind me of some research that Jordan Peterson cited several years ago, that they checked North America as far as how often people take the prescription drugs that the doctor gives them. And I think I think it was 60%, that they would follow their, what the doctor said by taking the full prescription and do what the doctor said with their medication. About 60% of North Americans would go ahead and do what they're supposed to. But if they took their pet
Yeah.
to the vet and got some medication for their pet, they would follow it to the T. Now, I don't know if that was 100%, but he indicated it was very high.
Yeah.
And so that says, well, his interpretation was, and I agree with him, that that says that we love our pets more than we do ourselves.
Yeah. Sure. I know people that they're animal leaks and they don't.
And so, but we've all been there. I know that there's been times that in my earlier years that I was so trying to do what I thought was right that I was depleting myself, and then I didn't have anything to give. And that actually was a terrible feeling and terrible experience, but it was a beneficial time of transformation for me. Let's see. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to touch these. Get in touch with your passions. We need to find those things that we're passionate about, that we have interest in. Those things can kind of stir up our ability to have some activities that we can help ourselves not to get better, because we're not actually deceiving ourselves or denying ourselves. Number 5, we touched on this a little bit with that question, but it's a little different. It says, honor your strengths. What are the positive traits and specific talents? List at least 3 of them. That's a homework assignment. Okay. List at least 3 of your the things that you those strengths that you have. Okay. Think about it and list them. It's good to know, right? And if you don't, if you're not able to do that, then maybe you can find a healthy individual that you trust that can help you find some of those strengths that you have on them. The tragedy is most of us continually work on our shortcomings or our faults, and we're trying to get better on that, and we leave our strengths alone when God has given us these strengths to really enhance our life. And there's a part of us, and I know I had this thought, well, because it's my personal strength, I'm okay or good at that, then that means everybody can do that, so it's less valuable. But that's not so. Did you catch all that? Good. Stand up. Okay, number 6 is stand up. We need to learn to be assertive, not aggressive, but assertive, okay? And identify your own perspective. In other words, what it is, how you see things. Even if it's wrong, this is Doug's opinion here, even if it's wrong, you can't see it's wrong until you really identify it, okay? But if you just live it automatically without looking at it, then you're just an automatic pilot. Does that make sense? So, and so understand your opinions and your perspectives. Number 7, simplify. We need to look at, if we are so overwhelmed and so stressed out, so much stuff going on that we're not able to really live our life, then maybe we need to simplify some things. It's saying that maybe you need to eliminate some belongings or some things that actually suck more time out of your life than you actually have to be able to give to those things. And so, and then and the way you do that is by one of the 12 steps favorite little statement is take a personal inventory. Right? Okay, how's that sound? All right, number 7, take time to play, recharge, okay? Love yourself. I like what Andrew Huberman says. He's a science at the a college in California. He says that one of the things we really need to do is, particularly if we're in close work a lot, or we're just always looking close, or always inside the house, is go out and stare into the distance. Do a long stare. Why? He says that resets your brain. It affects you. It does something because of he studies the eyes, and he says that long stare, like at the horizon, and he says it's even best if you do it at sunrise and get the morning sun, because that affects all kinds of things in you, mentally, emotionally, and physically. But he says doing that, even if you're sitting in a classroom and you're able to look out a window, or even if you just close your eyes and imagine that you're looking way out there, what that does something to your brain to let it relax just a little bit. And then and that's better. Okay? I like him. He's on YouTube, and I think he's on Facebook a little bit now, and he's on Instagram, and so I like him. And if you, number 9, seek help if you get stuck. Right? If you get stuck, find someone that's healthy and that's safe, that you're able to talk with, whether they're professional or whether they're a sponsor or whether they're a close friend, that's someone that can help you to process. Questions?
Be careful who you choose.
Be careful who you choose. And that's a learning process, learning how to be careful. Okay? So when you start learning things, you make mistakes. It's just the way it is, because that's the way learning is.
Yeah.
And you try to learn by information and by observation as much as you can. But the rest of the story is we make mistakes. And you're not a bad person for making a mistake. You just made a bad choice. Right? So choose again. Right? Any other comments, questions? All right. I'm going to close the meeting out here with prayer. Is that all right? Father, we thank you for the folks that are here. We thank you for the folks that are out there, and that there are folks that watch, and maybe they don't watch the whole thing, but you're able to direct them into pieces and parts that help them. And that's what we want. We just want to be an instrument to be used to bring freedom, peace, and forgiveness, wholeness, and that the truth that we don't have to be held by all these lies that we've carried around in our head. If we just stop and think, you'll show us that. Sometimes Father, I know sometimes we have a hard time knowing your voice. But you speak to all of us, and you speak to us oftentimes in different ways. I just ask that we all work on that, practice that, and you're there to help in that. I know that. We thank you, Father. And may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. Amen. And I just forgot I need to shut off the stream. So to you out there, I'm going to turn you over to Zach, and he can say goodbye. How about that? While I go find the buttons to turn you off. Bye-bye.
So we're still getting the hang of all the changes here, and I had a quick thought while he's doing that. You know, if there's something in your life that you're noticing, you know, try not to take it personal. I know that that's hard, you know, and this may be a radical statement, but I don't think that God sees those things in our life that we don't like as flaws. You know, we do, but other people do, but I don't think He does, because He put the things in us. We wouldn't be here if He didn't put the things in us that help us survive. So, you know, he gave us that so we would make it, so we're still here. And so, you know, he doesn't see them as flaws. You know, they're just, when we get to a safer, healthier place, they trip us up, and we gotta work on them. And so, you know, we ask for help, and he helps us, and helps us work them out of our life if we're willing. And so the other thing I was thinking is, as we close tonight, is, you know, like the thing that Doug was saying about go outside and stare off, you know, in the distance, reset your mind. You know, self-care doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it's really, really important, you know, and you know, sometimes self-care can be, you know, if you got the money, maybe go out to your favorite restaurant, even if it's by yourself, or, you know, go get a coffee. You know, if you don't have the money, you know, maybe it's heating up a towel in the dryer before you know, so you have a hot towel if you take a shower, or heating up a blanket so you can wrap up in that, or, you know, it's stuff like that. It's the little things can go a long way. It doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be big. Something that I do is that, you know, pet therapy is a big deal, you know, and so I take advantage of that. If there's if there's somebody's got a pet or something and they're friendly or something, you know, you can, you know, pet the animal for a few minutes, and it, you know, it does something for you. So anyway, without further ado, we're gonna close, and thanks for being here tonight. We hope you come back and join us in person, because, you know, we have a lot more fun in person. So anyway.